चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मायं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलम् श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीराधारूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं स्वावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sasmin. Thank you, Mataji. Tanvat Pranam. Humble obeisance, Mataji. Thank you so much for being a spiritual mentor for today. Mataji, actually, normally, thank you everybody. Avinash Prabhuji, Partha Prabhuji, Shruti Mataji, Saga Mataji, Prahlad Prabhuji, and Kirtika Mataji. Mataji, normally we read the slogas, then word to word, then the translation and purport. So how we want to go about, Mataji?
Well, I have got a PowerPoint presentation. Let me see if I can share the screen. And I've got the shloka on here, but not the purport. But if someone could read out the Sanskrit and the translation and also the purport, if you have it, then that would be fantastic. Then we can get started.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. I want to ask Saswin to read the slogas. Saswin, start.
Hare Krishna.
Fantastic.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Before we start, I would like to introduce the Mataji to everyone.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Still, very few devotee. I am hoping more devotee will join.
Okay, then introduce her afterwards. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Prabhuji, please.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Anaditvan nirgunatvan but paramatmayam avyaya sarirastopi kanteya na karoti na lipyate Lipyate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sasi. Avinash Prabhuji, can you read the slogas line by line? We will follow. We'll do practice.
Okay, so I need to go into it. Sorry. We are reading
Chapter 13, text 32, Prabhuji.
text 32. Okay.
It is in the screen.
Anaditvan nirgunatvat
Anaditvan nirgunatvat
paramatmayam avyayah
Paramatmayam avyaya
Sharirastopi konteya
Sarirastopi kaunteya
na karoti na lipyate
Nakaroti nalipyate. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Now, Lata Mataji, can you read the word to word?
Hare Krishna. Anaditvat,
Anaditvat,
due to eternity.
due to eternity.
Nirgunatvat,
Nirgunatvat,
Due
due to being transcendental.
due to being transcendental.
Parama,
Parama,
beyond material nature.
beyond material nature.
Atma,
Atma,
spirit.
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 I am
I am
this.
this.
Avyayaha,
Avyayaha,
inexhaustible.
inexhaustible.
Sarirastaha,
Sarirastaha,
dwelling in the body.
dwelling
in the body.
Api,
Api,
to,
Do,
Kaunteya,
Kaunteya,
O son of Kunti.
O son
O
of
son of Kunti.
Nakaroti,
Nagaroti,
never does anything.
never does
Does anything.
Nalipyate,
Nalipyate,
nor is he entangled.
nor is he entangled.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Visaga Mataji, can you read the translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I'm in the kitchen, sorry. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. No problem, Mataji. Lashmi, can you read the translation? Today we are in chapter 13, text 32.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Yeah, I read the translation.
Yes.
Those
Thank you.
with the vision of eternity. Those with the vision of eternity can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, and beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body, O Arjuna, the soul does anything nor is entangled.
Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. Prabhuji, Avinash Prabhuji, can you read the translation? We'll follow you.
Okay. I will
Hare
read
Krishna.
bit by bit.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Those with the vision of eternity
Those with the vision of eternity
eternity
can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental.
can see that the imperishable soul is transcendental,
transcendental,
Eternal and beyond the modes of nature.
eternal,
and beyond modes of nature.
Despite contact with the material body,
despite contact with the
Contact with the
material body.
material body.
O Arjuna,
O Arjuna,
Arjuna,
the soul neither does anything
the soul neither does anything
anything
nor is entangled.
nor is
is
entangled.
entangled.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
So much.
No. Prahlad Prabhuji, can you read that purport?
Yes. Purpose by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Jai.
A living entity appears to be born because of the birth of the material body. But actually, the living entity is eternal. He is not born, and in spite of his being situated in a material body, he is transcendental and eternal. Thus, he cannot be destroyed. By nature, he is full of bliss. He does not engage himself in any material activities. Therefore, the activities performed due to his contact with material bodies do not entangle him. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Avinash Prabhuji, can you introduce Mataji?
Hare Krishna. I know Mataji from quite a long time now. So she's a member of our Sangha, Harinam Sangha. So she was attending Sangha before. So just to give her the introduction, she has been attending a reputable school, and she was admitted to the university, and then a solid career in the corporate world. So she went into fast-paced life straight away. So that is what Adi Ganga is about. And she's doing, I think she pursued traveling and volunteering, reading books, book after book on self-development, trying to find the meaning and purpose of a deeper level. So Adi Ganga, as I know her as Anamika before, had always been a spiritual seeker. She just didn't define in those terms. She remembers coming to the manor for the festivals in her teens, though it was nothing more than an occasional visit. Later, after a brief encounter with Krishna devotee on the street, she accepted an invitation to Krishna Wisdom event. Almost overnight, the bigger world of the Bhaktivedanta Manor opened up, and she found herself on an incredible spiritual journey. So Adi Ganga's tree of light had sprouted then, actually. So that's what it is. So Adi Ganga went on to attend numerous courses at the School of Bhakti, including Bhakti Shastri, where she got, I would say she got 90%, that's what I heard. So she did very well. And later she joined a Bhakti Vriksha discussion group. So being a teacher by profession, she now spends her free time utilizing that skill by facilitating spiritual courses at the manor. So she facilitates, probably Adi Ganga will let me know which courses, but I think she does few courses. So Adi Ganga is truly inspired to give back all that she has received on her journey. And just to say, Adi Ganga, she is a disciple of Kadamba Kanana Maharaj. So I'll let Adi Ganga to introduce some of the bits I may have missed. So Adi Ganga Mataji, Hare Krishna. So before we start, can we have 3 Hari Bols for Adi Ganga Mataji? Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hare
Hari
Bol.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to your Sangha, and Avinash Prabhu, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I don't think I deserve such nice words. I'm just a learner like you, and as the more I go deeper into Krishna consciousness, not that I'm very deep yet, the more I realize how much I have to learn. So this is a lovely opportunity for me to go a little deeper into the verse that we're looking at and share what I've learned with you. So yeah, please, if you have any comments or questions, please do shout. I've got a PowerPoint and I'll go through this. But just looking at everyone here, all these wonderful faces. I know Ganga Mataji, Avinash Prabhu, and Vishaka Mataji, and I look forward to getting to know the rest of you. So we've gone through this wonderful verse, and we are now going to have a deeper look into what it actually means. Anything going on with my computer here, just bear with me. Can everyone see the PowerPoint first of all? Yes. Let's
Yes.
ignore it. Okay. So we went through the word for word translation, and I'd just like to go through some of the words and terms which struck me. So these are some of the terms which are used to describe the soul that we're talking about in this verse. And the first word is anaditvat. And in the word for word translation, this means eternity. And the root word here is adi. Adi means the original, the source. And in fact, Krishna is called Adi Purush, Govindam Adi Purusham, which is the primeval Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Anadi means the opposite of Adi. The soul has no beginning, it is beginningless. And the other word is Nirgunatvat. So the soul here has no material qualities. It's above the modes of material nature, completely transcendental. And the last word is Abhyayam, inexhaustible, never ending. So this refers both to the soul, Atma, and the super soul, Paramatma. So one thing to bear in mind is that the soul and the body are two separate entities, and we'll discuss a little bit about this later on. But Prabhupada in the purport, he writes that both the Atma and the Paramatma are eternal and transcendental. The soul doesn't actually change. But we know from chapter 2 of the Gita that the body does change. And in the 20th verse of the second chapter, we can see in the purports that the body is subject to birth. It remains for some time. It grows. It produces some effects known as children, so it reproduces. It gradually dwindles, which describes old age, and at last vanishes into oblivion, which is death. So there are some other differences between the body and the soul. Would anyone like to have a go at describing some of these differences? Anyone at all? Can think of a difference between the body and the soul?
Hare
No?
Krishna, have a go.
Yes, please, Avinash Prabhu.
Soul cannot be burnt by anything. It cannot be cut. So if I can start with that, so maybe other people can come up into that. But body can be destroyed by anything. Fire can burn the body, and it can cut the body as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Avinash Prabhu. That's a really important point. The soul is imperishable, it's indestructible, but the body obviously can be destroyed. Anything else anyone would like to say?
Prahlad has raised his hand, Mataji.
Thank you, Prahlad Prabhu.
The body is material, whereas the soul is more spiritual.
Absolutely, that's a really important distinction for us to understand. So we've had the body is material, the soul is spiritual, the body can be destroyed and the soul can't. The body is also made up of elements, earth, water, fire, and air, just like bricks and stones and other material objects. And it's a machine, it has a function. But the soul is made up of Anyone know what the soul is made up of? Of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. So it's the opposite of the body, which is temporary and subject to illusion and miseries. But it's not only that, the body can't actually function without the soul. In Prabhupada's book, Beyond Birth and Death, it's described there that when the living entity is in the body, then the body has life. So when the spirit soul is actually in the body has life, and when it when it passes away, we can see that the body is lifeless. And without the consciousness of the soul pervading it, the body is only dead matter. So here's the dilemma of this verse. So we know that the body is dead matter without the soul, but if the spirit soul is transcendental to the material body, and as it says in the verse, the Atma is never entangled in material activities, then who is doing all these activities? Who do we think it is if the body can't do it without the soul, and the soul isn't doing this activities? It says he does not engage himself in any material activities. Would anyone like to have a guess? Who is the doer? Any ideas? Who's actually doing all these activities?
Can I guess again?
Please, yes.
It's the modes of the nature.
Material modes of nature. Yes, yes, very close. Very close. And we go into a bit more detail about who the actual doer is. So, Krishna is the only controller. He's the only enjoyer as the Adi Purush. But when we come into contact with the material world, we identify with our bodies, and we see that as our real self, as our Atma. And on this false premise, we start pursuing sense enjoyment. We start to think we're the controllers, we're the enjoyers. And because of this absorption in something false, we then suffer the reactions of our activities. And we kind of get entangled in material nature when in reality, we have nothing to do with the material world. And nothing in this world has anything to do with us. So in the material world, we're like a fish out of water. And if you take a fish out of water, and no matter how much of a comfortable life you try and give the fish, you can give him, soft, comfortable seats, or you can, let him watch TV, he's not going to be comfortable because he has to get back into his original environment. And this is the problem with us, our real environment isn't in the material world, it's out of spirit. It's not the body with its senses, which hanker after gratification. The material world is like an upside down tree. So when you see a tree, normally the roots are at the bottom and the branches are at the top. But the upside down tree is the opposite. The roots are at the top and the branches are at the bottom. And does anyone know where you can see an upside down tree? It's actually in water. So an upside down tree is reflected in the water. But we know that when something is reflected, it's not the real thing. When you look at your face in the mirror, it's only a reflection of your face. It's distinct from the reality. So it's not the body and it's not the soul that are performing activities in pursuit of enjoyment. It's actually our illusion consciousness, which identifies with the body. In other words, the false ego. So I'm just going to read the purport of Canto 11, and it's chapter 23 and verse 54. Our consciousness, falsely absorbed in the body, experiences happiness and distress. And fruitive work, or karma, is performed when we falsely consider ourselves to be the enjoyers of the material world. False ego is thus the illusory combination within our minds of the self and the body, which are actually two separate objects. So here it's reiterated that the body and the self or the soul are two separate entities. And as we mentioned before, there were, we found out some differences between the body and the soul. And, Prahlad Maharaj said, Prahlad Prabhu said, it's actually material and the soul is spiritual. And Avinash Prabhu said, the soul is indestructible and the body is destroyed. And as I mentioned before, the body is made of matter, the soul is made of sept, sajat, ananda. Body is not the soul is not the body, but false ego arises when these two separate objects combine within our minds. So then we identify the body as who we are. If we're born with an American body, we think I'm an American. And if we're born with a Chinese body, we think I'm Chinese. But these are only external bodily attributes. They have nothing to do with the real self or the soul, which is independent of all material designations. And the combination of the body and self is illusory. And when we start to think we're the body, we then try to enjoy the material world via our senses. And we start thinking of ways to gratify them. And we perform activities or fruitive work in pursuit of that enjoyment. But actually that enjoyment isn't ours to take, and the suffering isn't ours to take either. The material world isn't really our playground, and a big part of Krishna consciousness is to bring the senses under control. And we have the 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, no fish or eggs, no illicit sex, no gambling, and I've forgotten the last one. Who can help me with the last one? Does anyone know?
No intoxication.
Thank you, Avinash Prabhu. No intoxication. So in the purport to verse 56 of the 23rd chapter in the 11th canto, we talked about verse 54 before, but now verse 56 also says, on the basis of false ego, the bodily covering factually overwhelms the spirit soul, and thus one falsely enjoys and suffers that which has no real relationship with oneself. So we don't actually have a relationship with the body, but we are suffering and even falsely enjoying on account of it because of the false ego. So what are the consequences of this, and what's the remedy? So one of the things is that we are attached to this material body because of the false ego. So we experience a fear of loss, of losing things. We're kind of in a foreign atmosphere and we're absorbed in something other than Krishna, and thus we've become a bit illusioned. So everyone experiences anxiety in this world. Perhaps we're wanting something we don't have. Perhaps we're not wanting to lose something we do have. And of course, there are the 3 types of miseries. Miseries caused by the body and mind, and the miseries caused by nature, and the miseries caused by other living entities. So, I think in some form we always experience misery, and therefore we're fearful because, body. There's many causes and instances of anxiety in this world, but the suffering we feel isn't ours. It has nothing to do with false ego becomes influenced by the 3 modes of material nature, which Avinash Prabhu mentioned at the beginning. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, again, it's the 11th chapter, Canto 11, chapter 10, and verse 31, 11th Canto, chapter 10. And it says there that the modes of material nature sets our bodily senses into motion. It activates them. So our false ego sort of marries 2 different things together. It marries the body and the self, And then the modes of material nature sets these bodily senses into action. Does everyone have an understanding of the three modes of material nature?
It would be good if you can revise it for us, please.
Sure. So basically, I've put a little diagram on the PowerPoint. So the modes of material nature, by the activities we do, such as the way we eat, the way we speak, our occupation, we associate with a particular mode of nature. So for example, if you're in goodness or sattva, you're conditioned by happiness and knowledge. In rajaguna or passion, you're conditioned by unlimited desires and fruit of action. So a lot of the people in this world, you know, sort of are conditioned by the mode of passion. You can see sort of in the hectic city life, which I used to be part of, you know, kind of there were so many people who are trying to get fruitive results. And if you're conditioned by tamoguna, or by the mode of ignorance, then madness and sleep and inertia is a feature of the mode of ignorance. And that's why one of the you know, core things for a devotee is to get up as early as possible, because the morning hours are in the mode of goodness. And if you can complete as many spiritual activities as possible in the mode of goodness, then it actually sets you up for the day. And also in the second row in that diagram, it gives you your destination. Our body is our future destination. It's also influenced by the mode of nature we were under. So if you're in the mode of goodness, then you'll go to the demigod planets. And if you're in the mode of passion, you stay on the earthly planets. And if you're in the mode of ignorance, you'll either go to a hellish planet or you'll take an animal body. So it's very scientific, it's very technical. And the idea is to extricate ourselves from the modes of material nature. The mind is naturally in the mode of goodness, but because it falsely identifies with the body, we try to enjoy the world through our bodily senses. And this is done in association with one of these modes. So consequently, we have to suffer the pains of material existence if we're in the modes of passion or ignorance. You know, kind of it's characterized by greed or foolishness. And if we're in the modes of goodness, we have knowledge, and you know, but that knowledge isn't pure knowledge. And we also have happiness, and that happiness is temporary. And so we even have to transcend the mode of goodness. We have to transcend all of them. But in the very first instance, we have to actually get out of the modes of ignorance and passion and go towards goodness before we can reach the transcendental platform. So we have to turn towards the remedy. Instead of associating with the modes of material nature, we need to associate ourselves with our spiritual nature, which is intrinsic to us. So this false ego is a conditioned covering, but our natural constitutional position is that we are spirit soul and not the body. So does anyone know what is the purpose of a spirit soul? What is our natural constitutional position? As we've said, it's not to enjoy, it's not to control, because that belongs to Krishna. So what do we think we do? Would anyone like to hazard a guess?
To serve.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you. And I can see Ganga Mataji has also put serve on chat as well. So that is our natural constitutional position, because we have an inherent need to serve. And even if we don't serve God, you can see that, you know, sort of we are all serving someone. Perhaps we have a boss at work that we have to serve. Perhaps we're married and we have to serve our husband or wife, or our children. And, you know, people who don't have families, perhaps they have a pet and you have to serve the pet and care after them. So this is our position, to be of service. Now, the idea is to actually serve God. You know, otherwise, if you don't serve God, then you serve Maya, which is in the conditioned state. And, you know, kind of Maya is bewildering, so that you keep thinking that you're the body and you keep pursuing sense gratification. So how do we get back to our original nature? So in order to become spiritually realized, the devotee has to make the fire of Krishna consciousness blaze in his heart or her heart. And to make fire, we need kindling sticks. And to light the fire, we need to actually have a spiritual master. And this analogy is presented in the 11th canto, chapter 10, text 12 and 13. So it's on the screen, I'll just read it. The spiritual master can be compared to the lower kindling stick, the disciple to the upper kindling stick. So you've got two kindling sticks rubbing together. The instruction given by the guru is the third stick in between. The transcendental knowledge communicated from guru to disciple is compared to the fire arising from the contact of these, which burns the darkness of ignorance to others, bringing great happiness to both guru and disciple. By submissively hearing from an expert spiritual master, the expert disciple develops pure knowledge, which repels the onslaught of material illusion arising from the three modes material nature. So to summarize these wonderful verses, transcendental knowledge, when it's passed from guru to disciple, is akin to lighting the fire, the fire of bhakti blazing in our hearts, the fire which allows us to serve the Supreme Person, the Adipurush. And when it starts to blaze, it burns out the darkness of ignorance. And this brings pure knowledge, not just the knowledge of the mode of goodness, but pure knowledge, transcendental knowledge, which gives transcendental happiness to the guru and disciple. It's actually a very wonderful, sacred relationship to be able to serve a spiritual master who is the representative of Krishna. And I've put a quote there from Srila Prabhupada, which says the genuine guru is God's representative, and he speaks about God and nothing else. So that you can also add ghee to the fire, you can add fuel in the form of hearing and chanting. And there are 9 types of devotional service, of which Shravanam, Kirtanam, are the first 2, but there are wonderful ways to actually add ghee to your fire. And the idea is to make your mind just like kindling wood and practice detachment from the material world, sort of without being influenced so much by our senses, seeking sense gratification, and practice devotional service and serving the devotees, so that when the pieces of wood are rubbed together, the flame can spark. So these were just a few thoughts I had about this verse, and I wondered if anyone would like to share their thoughts or pick up on some points I haven't made, or if anyone has got some questions.
Hare Krishna. If anyone has got any questions or comments or add anything, please do so. You can put questions on the comments box, so you're welcome to put the questions on the comments box.
So would anyone like to share any thoughts about the 3 modes of material nature, and which ones you think you're in, and any ideas about how to get to the mode of goodness?
Mataji, I was going to ask you that question actually. I was going to ask you the questions. We are so much entangled in the modes, different modes. And we have a modes of goodness in the morning, and then when we work, we are more into modes of passion, and probably sometimes mode of ignorance, and how do we actually get out of these modes and try to be into modes of goodness and be above the mode of goodness, the pure goodness, which we are all trying to get to. So that was I was going to ask you that question, but maybe people can reflect on what modes they are on before you can answer that question. So yes, I'll probably leave it to people to come with the comments.
Anyone would like to share anything?
Hare Krishna Mataji. So just like Avinash Prabhuji, even I float between the three modes of ignorance and passion, and sometimes I realize and then I get into the mode of goodness. So how do we, I think everybody, this is $1 million question for everybody. How do we keep ourselves in the mode of goodness all the time? And we are aware that we have to even rise above the mode of goodness. So Mataji, if you can throw some light on it, we'll appreciate.
Well, like you, I do fluctuate between the three modes myself. So that's one of the things that I found has helped me, is to learn about the Varna ashram system, and just to understand, kind of we have some Varnas, which is our occupation. So we have Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And sort of Brahmanas are in the mode of goodness, they're scholars and kind of teachers, and then Kshatriyas are the leaders, and they can be politicians and policemen, and Vaishyas are also the merchants and the agriculturists, and the Sudras are a range of wonderful professions which offer support as well to the other three Varnas. And so they're one of the ways that you can help is sort of to understand which mode you're primarily in, is to understand your Varna and which suits your nature, which occupation suits your nature. And then, kind of by doing that occupation, you will sort of increase your steadiness in Krishna consciousness. But of course, Varna ashram is just a tool to help us all get to the mode of goodness, kind of even if you're in the modes of passion and ignorance, then the idea is to get to the mode of goodness. And one of the ways that we can do that is by chanting the Maha Mantra, which will help cleanse our hearts of all the conditioning, not just from this lifetime, but from many lifetimes, and kind of a sort of a lot of kind of cleansing, and karma will be uprooted. And of course, following the 4 regulative principles. So as we mentioned, it's no intoxication, no meat, fish and eggs, no illicit sex, and I always forget the 4th one.
No gambling. Yeah.
Thank you, no gambling. So yes, and that doesn't bring us onto the transcendental platform. That just brings us into the mode of goodness, because sort of we're purifying our lives. Krishna consciousness is based on the pillars of cleanliness and austerity and mercy, and so those 4 regulative principles actually fall into line with that. For example, kind of cleanliness is no illicit sex, and kind of mercy is no meat, fish or eggs. So if you practice the 4 regulative principles, it automatically puts you in the mode of goodness. And devotional service as well, chanting and hearing will really help you. So I think it's wonderful that you're hearing the Gita verses every day. This is all having such a wonderful, beneficial effect on your devotional life. It's not, a super quick process. It hasn't been for me. I haven't automatically turned into the mode of goodness, but having a spiritual master to guide you and to help you get onto the Nishta platform, on the platform of steadiness. So you have the faith, you have the association, you're slowly cleansing your heart. But yes, you need to get onto this steadiness platform. We all do, kind of sort of the wobbly platform where sometimes you're very Krishna conscious, and then other times you fall back into sense gratification. So, that happens quite a lot, but a spiritual master will help you steer clear of some of the obstacles to your spiritual life. Does that kind of kind of address your question, Ganga Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, there are some questions on the chat, Adi Ganga Mataji. So I'll read the question.
Thank you so much.
So it says, this is from Alka Ben. Hare Krishna, there are times when the fire does dwindle due to the influence of the three modes of material nature and due to being in clutches of Maya. How do we try to bring ourselves back to the service mode?
Wonderful question. Thank you so much, Alka Mataji. So one of the things I did was the first thing I did was I decided to get up earlier and read. Now, I had a very busy job, teaching. Sometimes you work 15 hours a day, but I would make sure I read at least 15 minutes. If I could manage an hour, I would manage an hour, but at least 15 minutes every day I would read, because you're associating then with Prabhupada directly. So you're, reading Prabhupada's books, you're associating with the mind of an Acharya. And, so I just read a verse or two verses every day, and I'd get up, extra early to do that. And so, I think that's one of the things that's really helped me sort of be in that consciousness, be in the spiritual consciousness. And of course, you're chanting your rounds. I've vowed 16 rounds a day, but I try and increase that. But before I got to even 16 rounds, I used to do a regular number of rounds every day. So, some people might not be up to 16 rounds, but I used to do 4 rounds a day regularly. And if I then go up to 5 rounds a day, then I wouldn't go back to down to 4. I would just chant 5 rounds a day regularly. So, kind of in a couple of years, I got up to 16, and, made sure never to chant less than 16. And you do find time for it. It's amazing. If you have the intention, you will find time for, the chanting and the reading. And of course, association is very important. So I used to dedicate my Sundays, obviously this was pre-lockdown, to going to the manor every week. I'd either do a course online or do some service, as part of the hospitality team, where we used to take people around tours around the manor. So, kind of it's just, there's so many wonderful services out there, and I'm not sure what you have in Kenya, but I'm sure there's sort of things that you can get involved in, and just being in the regular association of devotees, the friendships would just grow and grow and grow. And it's funny, when I was new into Krishna consciousness, I just found devotees the nicest people in the world. Sometimes I wouldn't want to see my other friends, I just want to see the devotees. So all of that sort of brings you into that kind of, this sort of mode of goodness, slowly working towards it. And you address each an obstacle as it comes, with either, kind of a senior devotee, or you'll aspire for a spiritual master. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, I hope, Alkaben, that is useful. There is a message on the chat from Dhruti. She says, I feel attachment to our material world makes us swing different modes.
Exactly. And I think, you know, quite a few people have said that we do swing between goodness, passion, and ignorance, depending on, you know, our past karma and our past lives. And so we're not, you know, kind of all one thing all the time. And there was a quiz I did a few years ago online, and it tells you how much of goodness you are, how much of passion you are, how much of ignorance you are. And if I find it, then perhaps I can share the link with the Ganga Mataji and she can you know, give it to you. But I found that very, very useful to understand, you know, kind of where I was, and you know, what bits of ignorance I needed to take care of.
Any more comments or questions?
I can't see anyone with their hands up.
Okay, so I think we go back to Parth Premadas Prabhu. He will close the session. Parth Premadas Prabhu, Parth Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji, for your class. We are so grateful to you and also precious time you giving this group to describe the difference between the soul and the body. Already many devotees are giving their very valuable answer. Already it is described in this chapter 2nd and in the Gita summarized. Na jayate mriyate na kadachit ajo nitya saswatam purana na hanyate hanyaman. There are so many descriptions in about the significance of the soul and also similarly in the body. And due to our journey from text chapter 2 up to the text chapter number 35, I hope all the devotees have a very good concept the distinguish between the soul and the body. And you also very clearly explain how the body is in the on the gross body is the element of the 5 material elements, and the soul is the like a Satchitananda Vigraha. This is the spiritual spark from the super soul. And also you describe the importance of the spiritual master, how it can become surrender, and like the bhakti, the lightning, the spiritual spark supposed to, by the guidance of the spiritual master. Without spiritual master, we cannot progress in the devotional service. So it is very essential for everyone to have to surrender on a spiritual, bona fide spiritual master who guides us how we can progress in devotional service. Also, you very nicely describe this Harinam Kirtan, Ado Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nibruti, like this slowly step. And we are come to the end of the frame, bhava and frame of the Krishna frame, which is the most essential and to everybody, every living entity. So that is the things also. And also there is a very nice question, like Abhinash Prabhuji asking and other Mataji also, so how we are also the 3 models of nature, like the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness, and how we supposed to overcome on this situation. And we are situated in the Shuddha Sattva, the transcendental stage. The mood of a goodness and a mood of a passion, it is coming and go down also. And when we are practicing this one and chanting regularly, with there is no door, no proprietorship, and so many things they are like Dhruti Mataji also mentioned, we are floating here and there due to our attachment of the material nature and material contractions. So the thing is that when we are steady and determined and also chanting, like you are telling also the Navadha Bhakti, 9 process of the spiritual process, like Shravana Kirtana, Smarana Bandhan, like this similarly, it is going on. And also in my opinion that like if you are follow the only one verses, like the Shikhastakam, the 3rd verses, Trunadapishu Nichena, Taruropi Sahishnuna, Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. If we follow that one strictly and very submissively and humbly, I think we will be overcome in this matter, in this mode of like material nature, and we will be reached in the transcendental stage, like a Shuddha Sattva. The mood of goodness is not a very big thing. Like that one, and all the devotees in a, all also devotee, the sadhu, this one, like other sampradaya also, it's not like in ISKCON. There are also many mood of goodness. Even a cow, there is a mood of goodness. The parrot, the mood of goodness. What is the benefit? The monkey, he did not eating any non-veg, all time fruits. So mood of goodness is not a very big thing. Mood of, we are above of that. So the Vaishnava are above of this transcendental stage. It is called the Shuddha Sattva Star. It means a total transcendental situation. They're above of the goodness. Then we can realize the Krishna Prem. I think this is my understanding. I think Mataji, you can comment on that.
No, thank you, Prabhu. That's for your wonderful understanding. Definitely, I agree with you that, you know, sort of the mode of goodness is not the ultimate. And, you know, kind of the Krishna Bhakti is felt at the Prema stage, which you, you know, brought up at the end process of the 9 processes of devotional service. And, you know, kind of Krishna's not interested in us staying here in this material world, which is what this mode of goodness allows us to do. Like you say, monkeys and parrots, you know, a mode of goodness, but it just means that you stay here in this material world, and to actually go back to the spiritual world, which is our aim, then you need the transcendental platform. You need to understand your relationship with Krishna, and you understand your relationship in conjunction with him is to, you know, act as Krishna's servant and to please his senses, not our own senses, but his senses. So thank you, Prabhu, those wonderful points that you made.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Once again, I thanks to Hare Krishna Adi Ganga Mataji BG.
Prabhuji, there is a question from Brian Vasau. Sorry, Prabhuji, for the interruption.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask this question, like, how will I differentiate between the mode of passion and the mode of goodness? Because the mode of ignorance, everybody at least knows that I'm acting in the mode of ignorance. Now, when it comes to the mode of passion and goodness, now how will I differentiate that I'm acting on the mode of passion and at the same time I'm acting on the mode of ignorance? Now, how will I differentiate that? Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. So just to understand your question, you're asking how to differentiate between passion and ignorance?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So the way I understand it, the mode of passion is what most of the world is in the mode of passion, you know, kind of it's this hectic go-getting culture that we have. We've got unlimited desires, you know, I want a Mercedes, I want, you know, kind of to go by aeroplane to 6 different countries. So it's all of these, you know, desires that we have, that somehow we brought over desires from other lifetimes. And, you know, some desires are from this lifetime as well. And the mode of ignorance is in some ways the opposite of passion, because, you know, it's characterized by depression, laziness, inertia. So, you know, kind of a mode of ignorance person is not very much a go-getter. Sort of passion is one level up from ignorance, because at least, you know, kind of you're active. And in the mode of ignorance, you are just not active at all. So, you know, kind of these people, you know, kind of might not work for a living and sort of these kinds of things. So they are very, very distinct modes. And I wonder if anyone would like to add their own understanding to that, to give a fuller explanation, maybe Bharata Prema Prabhu or Avinash Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji, you explained very well. That is it, where do we progress? We can understand ourselves when we are in mood of goodness, when we are in mood of passion and ignorance. We can understand our talking, our action, our behavior, everything. So also this to describe in the Bhagavad Gita. When we read that one, we can follow how we're supposed to be in the mood of goodness or passion or ignorance. So it is like you described very nicely, and it is our own experience. We cannot tell, oh, I am in a good mood of goodness, but I am doing all the eating. Also, many things are there. How to the mood of a passion, what they like to eat, the mood of a goodness people, what to like to eat. So it is described here. That is own realization. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I just would like to give one example of a mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness. Is sometimes if I'm just talking about when we are sleeping. So when we sleep, a person in a mode of ignorance would like to say, I would like to sleep all the time. Yeah, so they will sleep all the time. A person in a mode of passion would be thinking, I need to go to work. I must wake up and go to work straight on. Yeah, a person in a good mode of goodness would say, oh yeah, I'm getting up. I'm probably do some good deeds here. I'll be going and praying to the Lord and so on. And then he will be going to work. So things like that. That is, I think, one example of person who would be sleeping, sleeping all throughout. So that is completely, in ignorance. They don't want to do anything, completely lazy. Yeah, some mode of passion, they would be greedy. They want to do something. They won't be, passionate. I want to work. I want to do something. I want to get money, for myself. So, and that's majority of people are doing that. And goodness, it will be like, charity, giving charity, thinking of being polite to people and things like that. So it's mode of goodness. So I just wanted to give that sort of example.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for adding such wonderful points to the answers. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
There's comment from Dhruti Mataji. She says, goodness is when you do without expectation. Passion is when you do with expectation.
Goodness is when you do without expectation. Passion is when you do with expectation. And yes, that's an interesting way of looking at it, because I think what you're saying there is that when you have a nature that's in the mode of passion, then you're expecting fruitive results, then you're expecting kind of each of your actions to deliver some kind of benefit to you. And when you're in the mode of goodness, you're not necessarily expecting results for yourself, like you would perform charity without expectation of results. So I think that's I think that's probably a valid judgment. I don't know if anybody else would like to comment on that.
Yes, Mataji. Also, in the mood of a goodness, also we have some like a no expectation. It's like that one. Yeah, it's a niskam. Like it is a very good point, niskam. So that when we have the desires of the fruitful activity, so it is not helpful to us in the spiritual progress. It's lies also, but sometimes also devotee in a good of goodness, mood of a goodness, they also do some work, but they are not entangled of the fruits of the result. They all dedicated their results, their work to the God, to the sacrifice. They think whatever it is coming, it's by Krishna's mercy. Even bad things come or good things come, that is the mercy of a Krishna. They're accepting that one. There is one quality. But in the same time, when the passion, the mood of a passion person, he works, then he think, I work this one, I get the result. I want this result. I want this reward. That is the aspects is there. Well, I did that one so that I get that one. That is the things. That is the difference. Also, the good of mood of a goodness person, the cleanliness, austerity, charity, truthfulness, and so many good divine quality. You can automatically comes on your heart and mind, and people can think, in our society also we can think this people is very pious people. What is the pious? Pious means that is the mode of goodness. Oh, these people are very nonsense. Keep away from that one. So it means you are, that is also people. They have also surrounding, but that is a mode of a passion or ignorance like that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful explanation.
Thank you very much also Mataji, you were giving your time. Also I thanks all the devotees who are assembling here. It is everyday group, everyday session in 8 to 9 in Kenya time. We are reading one verses every day in Bhagavad Gita and continuing till 8 to 1.5 year. We'll continue this one. Also thanks all the devotees who joined here. I request all the devotees, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra once for glorification of grace. Adi Ganga Mataji. Please join.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
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 Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare Rama
Hare
Hare Rama
Rama,
Rama Rama
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha sindhubhaya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo
Namo
namah.
Namaha.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Our grace Adi Ganga Mataji ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, everybody, for having me on. And I learned so much from you today. Thank you. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.